Let me place this letter in its moment in history. It was written on May 20, 1944, just 2 weeks before June 6, 1944, the day we now know as D-Day. At that time, the Allies were finalizing preparations for the invasion of Normandy. More than 1 million American troops were already stationed in Britain, waiting for deployment. In the Pacific, US forces were fighting intense battles across New Guinea and the Central Pacific. And here at home, bases like Camp Hood, Texas, what is now Fort Cavazos, were operating at full speed. Camp Hood was one of the largest armored and infantry training centers in the country. Units were being reorganized, reassigned, and pushed through accelerated training cycles to meet the urgent demands of the war in Europe. Now, the letter. Dearest Angel. Well, Angel, here I am in the hospital at Camp Hood, Texas. I'm not very sick, just have a sore throat. We didn't get here until 6 o'clock Thursday night, and by the time we got settled it was time to go to bed, so I didn't have time to write you that night or Friday morning, as we started drilling almost as soon as we got up. This place we went to when we first got here wasn't permanent, so at 6:30 Friday night we moved over to permanent quarters. You guessed it, I'm in the infantry. It is a branch called the Pioneers. It is almost the same as the Army Engineers, only we will have only 7 weeks of basic and 10 weeks of special training instead of 17 weeks of only basic. I can't come home in those 17 weeks unless it was a case of emergency. My permanent mailing address is Private Wiley Caldwell Jr Company D, 73rd BN. I.R.C. South Camp Hood, Texas. Listen, Angel, I wonder if you could spare some money as I'm getting low. I'm sitting here in the hospital office writing this while I'm waiting for someone to come and put me to bed. There doesn't seem to be anyone around. I would have written earlier, Angel, but wanted to be stationed permanent before I wrote you. They wouldn't let us mail cards or letters on the train coming down. Well, Angel, I had better stop and try to get to bed and take some medicine so I can get out of this place. Write me as soon as you can and let me know how you and the kiddies are making it. Does Jimmy still holler daddy when he wakes up in the morning? Well, night, Angel. I love you, darling. WCPS. I'll write back. Should be home tomorrow. When he mentions being assigned to the Pioneers, he's likely referring to a combat engineer type infantry unit, soldiers trained for construction, demolition, and frontline support work. Critical roles. Dangerous roles. By late May of 1944, most soldiers understood that something major was coming in Europe, even if they didn't yet know when or where. And yet, when we read this letter, none of that global tension appears on the page. What makes this letter so powerful is its ordinariness. There is no dramatic language about war. No mention of fear. No speculation about deployment. Instead, we see a sore throat, a move to new barracks, a request for a little money, and a father asking if his son still hollers daddy in the morning. While the world stood on the brink of one of the largest military operations in history, this young husband was thinking about mailing addresses, training schedules, getting to bed, and how his wife and children were managing without him. His tone is steady and reassuring. He downplays being in the hospital. He carefully explains delays in writing. And he repeatedly calls her Angel, anchoring the letter in intimacy rather than conflict. But beneath the surface, there is a quiet reality. He knows he cannot come home for 17 weeks unless there is an emergency. He has just learned he is in the infantry. And he understands that his life is no longer fully his own. Yet he ends the letter with tenderness. I love you, darling. What makes this letter meaningful is not battlefield drama, it is everyday humanity preserved on paper. It captures a moment just before the storm of Normandy, when thousands of ordinary men were still in training camps across America, writing home about the small things that mattered most. He asked if his little boy still called out daddy in the morning. But how many more mornings would pass before he heard it again?